A record 230 migrants crossing the world's busiest shipping lane crammed into one 15-metre-long inflatable dinghy. French teams say it was buckling in the water and could have led to a tragedy. 30 people cut off by the tide when trying to board it had to be rescued. Nigel Farage says it shows the situation is completely out of control, even if the overall numbers have fallen significantly this year.
And are you being straight with the British public when you suggest that this is an issue that is getting worse?
I've always thought the boats would get bigger. I've always thought they would. And we were pretty shocked the other day. Do you remember 173? That was about 2 weeks ago, if I remember.
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
Rightly, we were shocked at 173. Well, we're already up by another 25%. And yes, the overall numbers this year are down, but they're still horrendous. The idea that we should be celebrating the numbers are not as extreme as last year, I'm sorry, I believe that's for the birds.
The number of migrants per boat has increased dramatically in recent years, with an average of 72 per boat last month. But the overall number of people making the crossing this year up to the 9th of August, 15,242, is down 43% compared to the same point in 2025. On a visit to Dover earlier this month, new PM Andy Burnham promised to be relentless in reducing the numbers. The Home Office says a £660 million deal with France will put 40% more boots on the French beaches.
July has been the lowest number for 6 years of people crossing. So clearly progress is being made, but we're not complacent.
Experts say the bigger boats pose a higher risk. 173 people had to be rescued after a dinghy caught fire just last week.
The more we have these very large boats, the more people get packed into a boat, the more we see some of these longer journeys to the UK, the higher the risk of seeing another tragedy in the Channel is, and that's very worrying.
The Tourism Reform argue the boats won't stop until the UK leaves the European Convention on Human Rights. Nigel Farage is pledging to call in the Navy.
But Labour ministers believe their approach is beginning to pay off. Deals with France mean French officers have stronger powers to intervene on the beaches, and there's a controversial one-in-one-out pact as well. The decision to suspend the right for refugees to bring over their spouses and children could also be having an effect. But perhaps the biggest factor lies far beyond the UK's control. The number of migrants crossing into Europe as a whole has also fallen substantially this year.
If the fall in overall numbers proves lasting, it would be a political gift for the new PM. But for now, every new picture of these big, overladen, dangerous dinghies reminds voters that the boats still haven't stopped and the gangs certainly aren't smashed. Amanda Akas, Sky News, Westminster.
These are the scenes the British government is desperate to stop. A small boat loaded with dozens of people setting off across the Channel. The French police didn't stop it leaving, but it was shadowed by this search and rescue vessel, here to observe, not obstruct. We follow the boat as it chugs slowly along the coast for an hour. And then it takes a surprise detour back towards the shore. A police vehicle comes to meet it. A helicopter arrives, but the boat never lands. Instead, 4 people, almost certainly part of the smuggling gang that arranged this crossing, jump out and wade back to the shoreline as those left on board resume their journey. The 4 who leapt off are met by the French police, but they're barely questioned, let alone arrested, and within a minute they've walked off towards the dunes. Behind them, the frail, packed, slow-moving boat is on its way to Britain.
The French authorities are well aware of the progress of this boat. We've seen the police watch it leave the beach. There was a helicopter above, and that search and rescue vessel is monitoring its progress. But they won't intercept it because they're too worried about all of those migrants falling into the water. So unless the boat itself fails, all of those people will be landing in Britain.
We have seen how the smugglers who operate along this coastline are well organised and act fast. French police rarely enter the water, and the smugglers exploit that fact. British politicians have demanded tougher action from France. The French say the UK needs to address the pull factors that attract migrants. So what is it that draws so many people from around the world to make this journey? Many here don't want to talk on camera, but they do see the UK as their best option.
I'm trying to go to Manchester. But let me tell you one thing, yeah, all these people here, any of them when they get to the UK, they will be literally getting the black job. Black job, that means a job where you don't pay any tax or whatever, you just go work illegally. This is what they're going to do.
On this one small boat, another 50 people to add to the tally of many thousands who have crossed the Channel so far this year. A tide of humanity that is proving very hard to stem. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Dunkirk.
Britain's border betrayal. How 230 people crossed the Channel in one boat while Downing Street slept. Right, settle in, because what I'm about to tell you is not a drill. This is not exaggeration. This is not tabloid fear-mongering. This happened in the early hours of Monday morning, off the coast of northern France. And it is, quite frankly, one of the most staggering numbers this crisis has ever produced. 230 people. One boat. One inflatable dinghy that was never built to hold a fraction of that number, gliding into British waters as if the entire enforcement apparatus of two governments simply wasn't there. I'm your host here on Britain Underneath. And before we go any further, if you're new here, do yourself a favour and hit that subscribe button right now. Because what we do on this channel is peel back the polish, the press releases, the carefully worded statements from Whitehall, and show you what's actually happening underneath. So let's dive in. Because here's the thing. This isn't just a story about a boat. This is a story about adaptation. About a smuggling industry that has become so ruthlessly efficient, so terrifyingly entrepreneurial, that it now treats human lives as cargo space to be maximised. 9 mega dinghy crossings this year alone, according to French authorities, before this record-breaking one even happened. 9 times this year, criminal gangs have crammed well over 100 people into vessels designed for a fraction of that number, and gambled with their lives across one of the busiest shipping lanes on Earth. Let's rewind for a second, because context matters here, and Britain Underneath is nothing if not thorough. Just last week, before this record crossing, a similar mega dinghy carrying 173 people caught fire and capsized. 173 human beings in the water off the coast of France because an engine failed under a load it was never designed to carry. 11 people were injured. 3 were rushed to hospital in Boulogne. And by some miracle, by pure chance more than by any safety measure built into that vessel, everyone survived. But let's be honest with each other for a moment, because that's what we do here. How long until miracle number 2 doesn't happen? Now, this is where it gets politically uncomfortable, and I promise you, we are going to sit in that discomfort together for a moment, because that's the only way to actually understand what's going on. This is all unfolding under the government of Prime Minister Andy Burnham, a man who stood in front of the country and vowed, in his own words, to be relentless, to bring back control. His Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has repeatedly told the public that the government is bearing down on small boat crossings. Bearing down. That's the phrase. And yet here we are, watching smugglers respond to enforcement not by giving up, not by scaling back, but by scaling up. Bigger boats, more people per crossing, less margin for error, more lives on the line. Stay with me here, because this next part is important and I don't want you to miss it. The numbers on the surface, actually tell a different story. Crossings this year are down more than 40% compared to the same period last year. That sounds like progress, doesn't it? That's the number the government wants you to hold on to. But numbers on a spreadsheet don't tell you the full truth. And that's exactly why this channel exists, to show you what's underneath the headline figure. Because while the total number of crossings has fallen, the size of each individual crossing has exploded. Smugglers aren't sending fewer people across the channel. They're sending the same people, maybe more, in fewer, much larger, much more dangerous boats. It's not a retreat, it's a rebrand. And if you're wondering why, if you're sat there thinking, why now? Why this sudden shift to these so-called mega dinghies? Well, the timeline tells its own story. This trend accelerated right around July 2025, right when the UK and France struck their much publicised one-in, one-out deal. You remember the one? The deal where a person arriving in the UK by small boat could be sent back to France, in exchange for someone else being brought over legally to claim asylum. It was sold to the public as control, as order, as a system finally getting a grip on chaos. But here's the uncomfortable truth this channel has to say out loud. Some of the people making these crossings now are people who have already been sent back once under that very scheme, and are simply trying again. The policy that was supposed to deter didn't deter. It just added another chapter to the journey. Now, before you switch off thinking this is just statistics and government policy, take a breath with me for a second. Because behind every single one of these numbers, 230, 173, 165, 128, is a human being. A person who made a decision so desperate, so consequential, that they were willing to risk drowning in the English Channel rather than stay where they were. I'm not here to tell you how to feel about that. I'm here on Britain Underneath to give you the full, unfiltered picture and let you draw your own conclusions, because that's what a properly informed public deserves. And you know, it's not just politicians and campaigners weighing in here. Charities working directly on the ground in Calais are sounding the alarm louder than ever. Hannah Marwood, from the aid organisation Care for Calais, put it in stark terms, saying that deterrence policies don't actually stop people seeking safety, they just push them toward greater danger and greater exploitation. She's worked directly with people who were sent back to France under this scheme, only to face violence and unsafe conditions there, leaving them, in her words, no option but to risk the crossing all over again. That's not a talking point. That's testimony from someone on the front line of this crisis. Meanwhile, the government's own response has been, let's say, measured. A Home Office spokesperson called this latest incident evidence of the reckless tactics used by criminal gangs, cramming ever more people onto unseaworthy vessels to squeeze out more profit while enforcement tightens. They point to the numbers. Small boat crossings are down this year, the lowest July figures since 2020, and a new payment by results agreement with France that promises 40% more personnel patrolling French beaches. Progress, they say. But progress measured against what, exactly, when the boats keep getting bigger and the risks keep getting higher? This, right here, is the real story of Andy Burnham's Channel crisis. Not a simple headline of numbers up or numbers down, but an entire underground economy adapting in real time to whatever obstacle Westminster puts in front of it. Every new enforcement measure doesn't end the crossings. It just teaches the smugglers to innovate. Bigger boats. Fewer trips. Same desperate demand on one side of the water. Same ruthless supply on the other. with the Prime Minister stuck in the middle, trying to convince the country that control has actually been brought back, when the evidence arriving on British shores each week tells a very different story. So here's where I leave you today, and I want you to sit with this. 230 people crossed the English Channel in a single boat this week, and if the pattern we've traced together holds, it will not be the last record we see broken this year. The question isn't whether the government will respond. The question is whether their response will ever catch up to how fast this crisis is evolving underneath the surface. If this kind of story matters to you, if you want the full picture rather than the polished version, then you already know what to do. Subscribe to Britain Underneath, ring that notification bell, and come back, because there is always more happening beneath the headlines, and we'll be right here to show you every single time.